Hey, ladies and gentlemen, this is Carmine Sabia for Explain America, and Judge Boasberg, I think he thinks he was elected president, and the Supreme Court, well, they've embarrassed him. Before we get started, please make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe. You can do that right there. It really helps us out, guys. You know, this Judge Boasberg has issued so many orders, tried to stop Trump at every turn. Now he's threatening to hold top administration officials in contempt. You going to prosecute him? You going to prosecute him for an illegal alien? Go ahead. Go ahead, Judge Boasberg. Do it. Do it. Because I see the way your career's going, and it's not great. But see, he had a plan. He thought after what Chief Justice Roberts said, where he kind of smacked down Trump a little bit weeks ago, he thought for sure he'd get a ruling in his favor at the Supreme Court. But when the appeal got up to the Supreme Court, he got embarrassed. He got embarrassed by the Supreme Court that he thought was going to back him. This guy, this district judge, trying to stop the president of the United States, who's over almost 80 million people voted for. Who voted for Judge Boasberg? I didn't. Did you? You couldn't, because he's not an elected judge. He's an appointed judge. So this whole thing is absolute ridiculousness. And the fact that his daughter works for a firm that assists illegal aliens? Come on. There's a massive conflict of interest here. We've seen this in other cases before. If you remember Judge Juan Merchan and what his daughter did for a living, we've seen this before. This is lawfare. And to have this one little tiny ridiculous judge trying to stop the President of the United States is absolute insanity. I'm glad the Supreme Court embarrassed him. He deserved it. I want you to watch this and let me know what you think in the comments.
Contempt for violating its orders on deportation flights. He writes this. The court ultimately determines that the government's actions on that day demonstrate a willful disregard for its order, sufficient for the court to conclude that probable cause exists to find the government of the United States in criminal contempt. The Justice Department is appealing Boasberg's decision, obviously. Here with more, Fox News legal analyst and editor Kerry Urban. Kerry, I think part of the thing the judge says, you have to try to get him back. And the administration goes, yeah, I tried, can't get him back. They go, we need to show the work. And he goes, I tried. And now they're in a standoff. Now what's he going to do? How is he going to enforce this contempt charge?
So this is an interesting situation. You know, I'm not surprised we're here because this judge seemed determined from the outset to hold them in contempt. And frankly, Brian, when I was reading the decision yesterday, I felt like it seemed a little desperate. I think the guy's embarrassed. He made this a very public thing for weeks. I can't help but wonder if he thought that Chief Justice was going to ultimately back him, because don't forget, he had put out that the Chief Justice had put out that statement saying that warning Trump and others, like, don't criticize the judges, let us handle things in the normal course. So I don't know if that emboldened Judge Boasberg and thought the Supreme Court was ultimately going to back him. They didn't. In fact, they vacated his order, finding it defective. They said, look, this should have been heard in Texas, not before you in D.C., Judge Boasberg. But yet, to your point, he is still demanding that the government comply with the order. And his argument is, well, even though the Supreme Court ultimately found this defective, you should have obeyed this before they issued the order. And DOJ's argument is you should never have issued this in the first place. This wasn't your authority. It's inherently invalid. And so the fact that he's saying, okay, now I'm going to hold you in contempt. However, you can cure it. And by the way, that's where it gets interesting, Brian, because the way he's saying they can get rid of this potential contempt situation is by complying with what the Supreme Court told them to do, which is that these TDA members and other people who were deported on those planes still need to have the process they would have had before they were removed, which is going to be done in Texas via something called a habeas petition, where they challenge the removal. So it's a little strange. He puts on this big show in this decision, but in fact, the remedy he's giving them is something they already have to do because the Supreme Court told them to. And so that's why I think this is a little bit of a show. But to your point, the significance of it, saying, well, you're going to have to explain and, we're going to have to depose people. It's just why the Department of Justice is appealing, and they appealed right out of the gate.
All right. So now let's go to something else that interrupted our show, and we were happy to do it, in Maine, where the